What if the father of nations killed millions of his own people and got away with it? A man praised as a hero was actually responsible for the death of millions. His greatest triumphs were built on incompetence and brutality. They were built on an empire of lies. The real story of Joseph Stalin is buried under decades of dangerous, carefully constructed myths. These are not historical curiosities. They are toxic narratives used today to justify iron fisted rule. For years, state sponsored propaganda and fear cloaked the truth. But now the archives are open. The evidence is undeniable. Today, we're exposing the biggest lies ever told about Joseph Stalin. We will tear down these myths one by one. We will reveal a truth that's scarier than any fiction. We will start with the biggest lie of all. It's the one his entire cult of personality was built upon, the myth of Stalin as the man of steel. He was supposedly this brilliant leader who modernized the Soviet Union, the strategic genius who saved his nation from the Nazis. It's a powerful image and it's a profound lie. The official story goes that Stalin's ruthless industrialization created a powerhouse ready for Hitler, that his strategic mind led the Soviet forces to victory. The truth, the Soviet Union won the war despite of Stalin, not because of him. And that victory came at a catastrophic cost. A cost needlessly inflated by his paranoia and strategic blunders. Years before the invasion, Stalin crippled his own military. Between 1937 and 1938, he unleashed the Great Purge. In a paranoid frenzy, he ordered the imprisonment or execution of his most experienced officers. One academic study from the period notes that almost 35,000 commanders were purged from their ranks. This included 3 of his highest ranked officers, who were executed after a closed trial in 1937. He gutted the Red Army's leadership just before the greatest war in history. Then came the invasion. In 1941, Stalin received a flood of information about Hitler's plan to invade the Soviet Union. Warnings came from his own spies, from British intelligence, and even German defectors. He brushed it all off as provocation. He even allowed German spy planes to fly deep into Soviet territory, ordering his generals not to react to avoid antagonizing Hitler. When Operation Barbarossa began on June 22nd of 1942, the Red Army was completely caught off guard. Stalin's denial left the border catastrophically exposed. In the first day alone, the German Luftwaffe destroyed over 1,200 Soviet aircraft, with some estimates put the number closer to 2,000. Most of them were still on the ground. The so-called Man of Steel was stunned in silence. According to Nikita Khrushchev's memoirs published after his death, Stalin fell into a deep despair. He retreated to his dacha for several days. The state was left leaderless as it faced annihilation. He reportedly muttered to his inner circle a quote that was later made famous by Khrushchev: "All that Lenin has created, we have lost forever." These myths run deep, and we are just getting started. If you think that setting the record straight is important, please like this video. It helps others find it. The myth of Stalin's military genius is a lie, but the fiction of the workers' paradise is even more twisted. Propaganda painted an image of a thriving communist utopia. This bright facade was designed to hide a nightmare of terror, starvation, and slavery. That nightmare began in the countryside. Stalin's policy of forced collectivization erased private farms. Millions of family farms were consolidated into massive state-run enterprises. Peasants were stripped of their land, their animals, and their dignity. Anyone who resisted was branded a kulak, an enemy of the state, and either executed or deported. This brutal policy led to one of history's worst man-made famines. From 1932 to 1933, the state seized an impossible amount of grain from Ukraine. The entire region starved. This event, the Holodomor, was not a natural disaster. It was an engineered famine, a deliberate act of terror. Demographic studies based on now declassified archives place the death toll in Ukraine at around 3.5 million people. A secret directive signed by Stalin and Molotov on January 22nd of 1933 sealed Ukraine's borders. It prevented peasants from leaving to find food. All the while, his government publicly denied the famine and rejected all offers of outside help. And for those who didn't starve, another fate awaited: the Gulag. This was the infamous network of forced labor camps that stretched across the Soviet Union. From 1929 till 1953, archival records show that an estimated 18 million people were sent into this system. Your crime could be anything: telling a joke, being late to work, or simply being affiliated with an enemy of the state. The nightmare of the Gulag was a constant threat. Conditions were inhuman. Prisoners faced starvation, disease, and crippling frostbite. Archival data shows that approximately 1.8 million people died in these conditions. This was the real engine of Stalin's industrialization. The workers' paradise was in reality a frozen, sprawling prison. Stalin's third great lie was maybe his most audacious. He did not just murder his rivals and his people, he murdered truth itself. He knew that in order to control the future, you must first own the past. He started by faking the public record. The most famous examples of that are the doctored photos. In one iconic image, Stalin strolls with his secret police chief, Nikolai Jezov. After Stalin had Jezov executed, he simply vanished from the picture. Soviet censors meticulously airbrushed him out of existence. Rivals and purged officials were not just killed, they were erased from history. But Stalin's biggest historical rewrite was his relationship with Lenin. Propaganda painted Stalin as Lenin's chosen heir and most loyal follower. The truth was the exact opposite. In his final writings, a series of documents spanning from 1922 to 1923, known to the public as Lenin's Testament, a dying Lenin warns the party about Stalin. He called Stalin too rude. He described this as a defect that is intolerable in a Secretary General. Lenin's final recommendation, written in a postscript on the 4th of January 1923, Lenin puts it bluntly: the party must think of a way of removing Stalin from that post. Stalin and his allies suppressed the testament, they hid it from the public for decades. In its place, he built a godlike cult of personality based on lies. He was the great teacher or the father of nations. His face was everywhere, on statues, posters, and in poems. He was a constant manufactured presence designed to crush critical thought. He was not just a dictator, he was an editor rewriting history itself to secure his power. If you think it's important to expose these historical truths, subscribe and ring the bell. You will not want to miss my next video. Let me know in the comments what's the biggest historical lie you've seen people propagate. The brilliant strategist he was not. The workers' paradise that was a slave state. The fabricated history that replaced the truth. These are not just historical footnotes. They are dangerous legacies. The image of Stalin as a strong, impressive leader is still propagated in some circles today. It is a myth to excuse authoritarianism and aggression. The brutal realities of his regime are often downplayed or outright denied. Getting the story right on Stalin is more than just an academic exercise. It is a vital lesson in how power, paranoia, and a disregard for the truth can lead to unimaginable suffering. The most terrifying thing about these lies is not that they were told, it's that they were believed. And still are in some places. Believing Stalin's myths once cost millions of lives. Believing them now could cost millions more.